Well, good afternoon and welcome to this week's Local Marketing Institute office hours. Thrilled to introduce you here to Mary Keane with CallTrackingMetrics. Hi, Mary.
Hi.
Hi. We're really excited about this one here because we've had a lot of people asking about call tracking. And so, CallTrackingMetrics is one of the top players in this space here. And I'm just excited to go in and start talking a little bit with Mary about really what is call tracking. How can local businesses use it to better track what they're doing, their interactions with their customers, their ROI on their ad spend, things like that. And then, kind of specifically what CallTrackingMetrics does to actually enable that, I think is going to help give us a really good inside look. So, Mary, I'm just going to go ahead and turn it over to you here and kind of let you move ahead. And I may stick a few questions in here or there. One thing I do request that if anybody attending has some questions for Mary throughout this process or about call tracking in general, go ahead and just use the Q&A function that we have in the webinar, or if you're watching this archived, go ahead and just post the questions in the comments area, and we'll make sure that Mary gets those and can get back with you on those, okay? Mary, I'll let you just take it from here.
All right, cool, thanks. Let me share my screen. Okay, so I'll show you a few things today, which is just kind of like what our system looks like, how it's...
Mary, I don't think I'm seeing your screen here. Yeah, oh, there it is. There it is.
Yeah, thanks. I'll walk you through a few things like what our system looks like, how it's set up, how it works. But to get started, I think we should just talk about like what dynamic number insertion is. So it's really the core of what we do. Basically, you just get different phone numbers from us and you assign those to your different marketing channels. And we give you a line of code to put on your site, and that's going to do all your number swapping. So I'm going to take you to our website just as an example. So we're going to go to CallTrackingMetrics.com. And if you look at our site, you're going to notice that we've got a number here. So this is like our main number. You would probably find it in, our different listings. But we've added a line of code to our site. So what I want to show you is if you keep an eye on this number, I'm going to show you what an AdWords click would look like. So if somebody had searched for your business, found your ad, and then clicked it and went to the site. So let's just take a quick look. If I were to simulate an AdWords click, we're just going to type in this code here to test. And if you watch closely, you'll see the number swap. So now we have a different number on the site. And the reason for this is because when somebody calls, we're going to want to match the session with their phone call and be able to tell you more detailed information. So we're going to take a look at that in just a minute here. But let's dive in and just get started. So when you create an account with us, you can sign up right on our website, and you'll want to get some numbers for tracking. So if you have existing numbers that you're using, you can always port those to us. Porting is the process of just moving from one carrier to another, and we would be able to track your existing numbers. And if you wanted to start with new numbers, you can do so. You would just come into the interface here and search for any numbers you'd like. We provide both local and toll-free numbers, and if you wanted to purchase numbers for other countries, you certainly can. But we're in the Maryland area here, so I'm just going to pull up our area code. So put in 410. We've pulled up, the inventory that's available, and you can pick out anything you want. We also offer toll-free numbers, so if you want to get a number with like an 855 or 877 prefix, you can do so. Sometimes we run into customers that want to get like a true 800 prefix. Other times they want to get a vanity number so that they can spell like their business name or the type of service that they provide. We can provide those by both toll-free and local numbers. So there's a form to reach out to our team through the interface here, and you can request a number and they'll come back to you with the options. A couple important things to note about your numbers is when you purchase numbers from us or if you port numbers from us, you are the owner of these numbers. If you work with other call tracking providers, often you're not the owner. So that's always something to consider when you're looking into working with a call tracking vendor.
That's actually an important point here, because it's kind of like we talked about, like I think with Yext, when Yext claims a bunch of your local listings,
Mm-hmm.
you're technically the owner of those listings. You stopped working with Yext and your listings revert. In some call tracking or call tracking systems, the call tracking system owns the number. You leave that call tracking system, you leave all those numbers behind. So what you're saying is that with what you guys are doing, at least, the numbers belong to me as the business, not to CallTrackingMetrics, correct?
That's exactly right. Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
And then if you were to choose to end your service with us, you can always port those numbers to your current carrier, like AT&T or Verizon, whoever it is.
So I think it might be good to go back again, and I think before I dive too far into the system here, just to reiterate the business case for a local business. Some people may know this, may understand dynamic number insertion. Some people, though, may not really understand, okay, how does this work? I have a phone number on my website. I'm using this phone number in all my local listings all around. What am I really doing here? Why am I doing multiple numbers? And why am I changing out and showing different numbers on my website when people come in through various methods?
Yeah, the purpose of switching out the number is so that we can differentiate which channel they came through. If we were to try to track everything with just one phone number, it's really hard to figure out if they had seen your number, you know, in a flyer versus if they had seen it, you know, on your website or in a directory listing. It gets really hard to figure that out. So there's a couple of things that you can do. You can get like one number and just track simply the number of calls that you're getting. And, you know, there's a lot of value in that too. And you can listen to call recordings. That's often a helpful tool. But generally speaking, the more numbers you have, the more detailed your reporting is going to be.
Okay. But like you mentioned AdWords. So I may want to have a specific number that I set up specifically to track my Google AdWords campaigns and my Google AdWords return on investment. So if someone's going on Google AdWords to come to my site, there's a unique phone number that I can tag back and say, okay, any calls I get on this number, I know came from Google AdWords. Whereas if I just came through my general number, people come through my general number, I may or may not know where those people came from. That's really the purpose behind dynamic number insertion and call tracking, right?
Exactly. Yep.
Okay, good. Just want to make that clarification, because I think a lot of people may know that, but there's a lot of people who aren't really familiar with exactly how that works and why you would use this in a local business environment. Yeah,
it's important to be able to kind of track where everybody's coming from. That way you can optimize your campaigns around it. And, you know, the more phone numbers you have, the more detailed reporting we're going to be able to provide you, and the better you'll be able to optimize. All right, should we jump into, we talked about purchasing numbers. In terms of setting up your numbers, there's just a couple things that we need to know. And this is something that you would set up right through our interface here, which is, you know, getting the tracking number, associating the tracking source. So that's the channel they're coming through. We can track anything you can put a phone number on. So that can be things like a flyer, a business card. It can be, you know, your existing phone number, people coming to your website, you know, really anywhere a number is displayed, we can track that. So you would just go through and select a tracking source. Okay. And all of these are preset for you. We've got all of the commonly used ones. If you ever want to create a custom source, you certainly can. We also need to know where to forward the call because this is acting as a forwarding service. So we would be able to tell you, we would be able to, we would be able to forward the call and let your existing like PBX or line take over and do any routing that you already have set up. We also have target numbers. This is the number that is normally listed or hard-coded on your website. And that is what our JavaScript code is going to be looking for to replace with one of your tracking numbers based on how the person got there. So we were talking about purchasing a number and then being able to dynamically swap numbers on your website. We're doing that using just this one line of code. It's something you just put after the head tag on each page.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's kind of really the setup in a nutshell. A couple of things to note that may be helpful for some businesses or local businesses would be your call settings. So this is kind of where you can come in and control your greetings and whisper messages. So our default is to play a message to your callers, letting them know the call is going to be recorded. You can customize this. You can upload your own greeting. If you have an existing greeting on your system, you can always just delete ours. We do include call recordings. There's no additional fee for that. It's a really great tool because while you're getting calls, yes, that's important, but it's also important to learn, how they're being handled. Another feature that the businesses we work with really like to use is our agent whisper message. This is a great way to kind of give your team a heads up for what the call is related to. So you can hear the name of the source read out to you. So if you have like a Google local listing and that's what the name of your tracking source is, that's what you would hear when you answer the phone. So a customer calls you and you answer the phone, you're going to hear new call from Google local. And
that's
then,
slick.
And then your caller would be connected to you, and it's no different experience for them. Yeah, we also provide some additional tools that you can enable in the account. So if you're looking to kind of spot specific types of calls, or maybe you want to track products or promotions that you have, we have our transcription feature, and we pair this with keyword spotting. So when you enable this, what we're going to do is go through and transcribe your calls. And based on certain words that are being spoken in a conversation, you can take automatic actions. So some of the things that we track are like people calling in and saying wrong number. You want to exclude that from your reporting so that it doesn't affect us trying to match like a session. So if somebody accidentally calls one of your numbers, we would just exclude it. We also can track things like if sales are being made on the phone. So some of the words that we would look for in that case would be things like credit card, expiration date, confirmation number, things that indicate a sale is being made. And based on that being spotted, we would take an automatic action. So we can tag the call as a sale, we can score the call, we can send your team a notification by email or text, that way they know to the call. So it's just another useful tool to kind of be able to categorize your calls and then look for different trends.
So what you're saying is that as part of what you're doing on top of the call tracking is you're transcribing and storing all of the calls that are coming in, and you can eliminate some of those calls, but you can also then come in here and literally take different actions or different scores based upon what it actually transcribed from the voice call.
Yep.
Okay. So this is getting into kind of some CRM type functionalities, right?
Yeah, we kind of have a little bit of a lightweight CRM built into the system.
Okay. Do you guys integrate with other CRM systems? I think a HubSpot, an ActiveCampaign, or maybe there's other different kinds of CRM systems that might be out there?
Yeah, great question. We do. So we integrate with a number of different systems. Yeah, we integrate with HubSpot is a good example. Probably our most robust integration is going to be Salesforce. I think this is also our most popular one. But they all kind of work the same. Essentially what we're doing is when somebody calls in, we look at the phone number that they're calling from, and we look to see if they're an existing lead or contact. And if they are, then we can add the call as an activity to their record and attach the campaign. And if they're not, then we can create a new one for you.
Okay. All right. That's cool. I don't need to do too deep in there, but I know it's like you're starting to get customer data in different places. And I know some people say, well, how do I begin to bring that data and merge it together? And sometimes you have some integrations to help make that happen on that.
Yeah, we do have HubSpot and Salesforce. We also integrate with Zapier, and so you can connect to really anything.
Connect anything with that. Yep. Okay.
Yeah. So while we're on the integrations, I think there's a couple of important ones to talk about here. WordPress is a good one to be aware of. It's a pretty simple integration. What we do is, or I guess what you would do is just to paste the tracking code into the plugin, and that's going to do all of your number swapping. So it's just an easy way to apply the code. But also we integrate with forms. So if you're using like Contact Form 7 or Gravity Forms, we can not only track your calls, but we can track your forms, and you would be able to see both of those in one view within our system. Yeah, we actually do some pretty cool things with forms too. So if you're using Contact Form 7, Gravity Forms, if you're working with other systems like Marketo, you can take those forms and turn them into what we call a form reactor. So this is something in our system that's basically, it's like a click-to-call form. And you can customize these, embed them on your site. You can integrate with this feature. But what happens is a customer comes to your website, they fill out the form, and they click call me. What we're going to do is send your team a phone call. And when they answer, they're going to hear a message that you can customize, but it's typically something like new form lead, press 1 to make this call. Mm-hmm. So if your team presses 1, we're going to immediately call the person who just filled out that form. So you're able to connect with them in under a minute. So it's a really great way to catch that person while they're still at the computer.
Okay. So, and I don't want to derail you, so tell me if I'm getting off path of this, but I want to kind of go back a bit to the dynamic number insertion.
Sure.
So kind of back to the beginning, we have different numbers for different things. One of the things, and we talked about this before, is businesses on their website, when someone just comes to their website, you want to have a certain way that your NAP, your business name, address, and phone number are formatted that's consistent with other citations around the internet. Mm-hmm. So we're talking about, like NAP consistency. Would a business can't really use dynamic number insertion in a Google listing, right? Or in a Yelp listing. So would your recommendation still be, hey, look, still use your primary local area code phone number in your Google My Business listing, in your Yelp listing, in these various listings, and on kind of the main part of your web page. But use the dynamic number insertion, different numbers only works when people come to your website from different sources. Is that correct?
Right, yeah. So if you want to be able to track numbers, or I guess like, your Google local listings, Yelp listings, we can, and to be consistent, you want to use the same phone number. So either you can use your existing business line, or you can get a new tracking phone number for that. And you can use that as the phone number on your website, and then also the phone number that's going to appear in these different listings. So the key is just to use the same phone number for those.
Right, and I think that's the key thing I want to make sure everybody on the webinar knows about here. Hey, look, dynamic number tracking, it's awesome. There's great capabilities, but the limitations there as well. You're still going to use your main business phone number, your main local number that you use on your main website. That's still what you're going to use in all of your various business listings. However, where dynamic number insertion comes in is, let's say I'm going to do, when you're spending money on something, especially if I'm going to do an ad somewhere, or I'm going to do put out a brochure with something that has on it, or if I'm going to get people to my website through different places, that's where something like a CallTrackingMetrics or other vendors, that's where you guys really shine, right?
Yeah. Yeah, so when they come to the site, that's when we can really tell you more information. We can still track those other calls. So if you port your existing business line to us, we can still track those. And then, that's a good way just to see simply the number of calls that you're getting from these efforts.
Yeah, so if you already have several different numbers you're using for tracking for different purposes, maybe something you're using for your print efforts, something you're using for something else, putting them into this system, even if it is just your main number you're using in all these other places, it's a good way to track all those on top of then being able to do dynamic number insertion if you're coming from other places. Okay, thanks.
Yeah. Sure. Um, yeah, let's see. So we're talking about forms. It's a good way to connect quickly. Anything else you want to talk about on dynamic number insertion before I jump into one other capability of your numbers?
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
Yeah, so really, we started out doing call tracking, specializing in just telling you how people are finding you, but really we're moving toward being like an all-in-one solution. So we're doing the call tracking, we have forms, and we also do text. So texting is just another great way to connect with your customers. So when you get numbers from us, you can look for ones that can be SMS enabled. And when you get those numbers, you can text your customers through the interface here. But you can also put ads out that say like text like wow to my number to learn more. And if you were to do something like that, we can set up triggers. And I'm sure you've probably seen like yard signs from like realtors that say text wow to my number. And then what they do is they send a short link to more information on the property. So that's actually something that you can do in our system. So, if you want to set up, let's start with setting up a message. So if you want to create like a bulk message to go out to a list of contacts, you can do so. You would just select like which tracking number you want to send the message from, and that's what they'll see. And you can just paste in the message and upload the list of contacts. And then you can either send the message now, you can schedule it for later, or you can even send them a recurring message. So it's just another good way to connect. Now, so that's for your outbound messages. For customers or customers texting you, you can give them like different like keywords to message you, and then based on that, we can send them an automatic response. So I was mentioning with like realtors, how they put out yard signs, we can match specific words. So here we're looking for the word wow, and then when we receive that, we're going to say, hey, check out the listing here, some more information.
So you started out with really the call tracking. But now you're kind of expanding out to saying, hey, let's just begin to track all the ways that your customers may connect with you, whether it's through a form, whether it's through text messaging, whether it's through email, anything in the chat features coming up?
Yeah, I think you'll see something maybe later in 2018.
Okay. I'm asking because we had a really great session in our local business marketing summit a couple of months ago where people talked about a chat feature on a local business website. How about, I mean, and I know you may not be able to do it, but are there any integrations that you guys are doing with like Facebook messaging, or now the messaging that's coming through on like Google Places? Now you can also send messages directly through Google Places.
Yeah, that's a good question. We have an integration with Facebook in the works.
Okay.
That's all I can say right now.
That's all right. That's all right. I know that. But you're thinking that way. You're trying to ultimately become, hey, this is how we can help you manage and track your communications across multiple different channels.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, got it. Makes sense.
We even have a call center solution built into our product. One of the things we learned was, while customers are coming to us looking to track their calls and their marketing efforts, yes, that's important, but they were also having to pair us with another system like Ring Central or Five9. So essentially they were having to pay for like 2 phone systems. So we ended up building our own call center solution, and it's kind of great. Like, we use it in our office here. It's browser based. You pop out the soft phone through the interface, and you just click to accept calls. Now we're in Maryland. It doesn't snow a whole lot here, but when it does, we don't miss a beat. We all just go home and take our laptops home and pop out the soft phone and keep working. Makes sense.
Well, so that actually was one of the questions that we had from one of our attendees. Does your system integrate, and does the phone dynamic number insertion work with voice over IP systems, things like Grasshopper or OneBox?
Yeah, so in that case, we would just be forwarding the calls to their system. So there isn't really like a true integration. We're just sending the calls over there.
Yeah, it may have to do more with the porting of the number and who owns the number, because you've got a voice over IP system.
Mhm.
Do they have to own that number? Do you own that number? So, or maybe it's you have a number using for call tracking that you're forwarding to that number over there or something.
Yeah, if you have numbers like with another VoIP provider, you can port them to us and we can track them. As far as ownership, you would just need to check the terms of service with them. Some of their providers do charge port away fees. Some don't even give you that option. So it's just something you need to check into.
Now, I think there's people who still want to use
Yeah.
Grasshopper or One Box for their own phone system, but they want to now add call tracking on top of that.
Yeah. And you can do that. In that case, you would just get new phone numbers from us and then set those to forward to your Grasshopper numbers.
Right. That's what I would think too. Okay. And then the other question, I think this is more just a business strategy question that came up, was so for a local business and a local number, do you find it more important that businesses actually have a local number when you're seeing dynamic number insertion, or a toll-free number? I guess that kind of depends. I mean, I have a thought on that, but I want to hear your answer first.
Yeah. My answer, and I tell everybody this the same, you know your customers best. You know, it can really vary based on the type of business you are. One of the things that I've learned from our customers is those that are catering to like a little bit older clientele, it's important to have local numbers. You know, they only want to talk to people like in the local area, you know, or in some cases they need toll-free numbers too. You know, I don't think really anybody does long distance charges within the US anymore, but yeah, so sometimes they, you know, they want to have both, like, you know, like hyper local numbers and then also a toll-free number. And we can actually swap both on your site. So if you have, you know, a local number and a toll-free number listed on your site, then we can swap both.
So here, yeah, I think that's you're right on. I think the key is also going to be the type of business. Obviously, your solution could work for different types of businesses, not just a local business. It could work for a national-based business as well, or international for that matter. But I think for local businesses, it's still important that whenever possible, you display a local area code. So even if someone's looking at you from AdWords and you're doing dynamic number insertion, I think it's still important that someone sees it's a local number, because that's what a local business is all about, serving that local area, versus necessarily an 800 number. 800 number wouldn't hurt, but I think that local business really, it adds legitimacy to what you're doing. Now, if I'm a national-based business, then the 800 number then having a local number isn't as critical. But I think for local businesses, I would still recommend, whether it's your main number or whether you're swapping out for dynamic number insertion for certain efforts, try to use a local number if you can, because most of your clientele are going to be local. Now, the exception to that may be if you're in the hospitality industry and you've got people who are traveling in and coming in, especially like hotels. Yeah,
we do also have, I guess, two other kind of capabilities with your numbers with regards to like displaying them. One thing that kind of comes to mind would be our geo contact feature. So let's say you're like a national business and you've got locations in every state. What we can do is show the most local number to your website visitor based on their IP address.
No, that's cool. That's very applicable.
Yeah. So you can do that, you know, you can get pretty granular with it. Like you can go down to like different cities, and sometimes we have customers that do it based on country. So they might be based in the US, but they're receiving calls from like, you know, the UK and Europe. So then they just get a number for each one of those countries and we display a local number for them. And then that way they're not paying, you know, international charges.
Right. Makes sense. No, actually, I like that idea, especially for businesses who have multiple locations, different parts of the state, or multiple different states with those locations, to swap that out. That's intriguing.
Yeah, one other thing we do when you have like a multi-unit business would be our geo-routing feature. So we have geo-contact, which is just how we're displaying the number based on location. But we also have geo-routing, which is how we're deciding to send the call, like who we're going to send it to. So geo-routing would either look at the area code of the person calling in and then decide like which of your different locations to route to, or we can route based on their zip code. So an example would be, and actually I can show you this here. An example of this would be if you have like a gym, like a franchise, you know, lots of different locations, we would play the caller a message like, thanks for calling, enter your zip code to be routed to the closest location. And then you would just upload a list of the receiving numbers for your different locations and then where they're accepting calls from.
Got it.
Mm-hmm.
Got it. Makes sense.
Yeah. Should we talk about Google?
Let's do it.
All right.
Are you going specific at Google Analytics or Google what?
So we're going to talk about Google Analytics and AdWords. We connect with both and for different purposes. So let me jump over to, I'm going to start with analytics. So we can send all of your calls into analytics as an event. And that even means like people that are calling from, like if you have like a flyer or TV ad, it doesn't matter if they were on the website or not, we can still send that in as an event. So what you would do is just link the account with your analytics, and we're going to send calls in as an event. And let me pull up some of the screenshots I have here I can share with you. So you can see how this works. All right, so we're gonna send the calls in as an event, and you would be able to see that. There we go.
There we go.
Yeah, so you would be able to see it under the event category, and we've got calls, and you'd be able to see like the total number of events for that. If we take a look, if we take it down.
Just to be clear, that only works if on my website I have transformed my phone number to be utilizing your system in the dynamic number insertion, correct?
No, we can send offline sources into analytics as well.
Of course, because if someone calls offline, it's coming into your system through that phone number, and then you can record that in Google Analytics.
Yeah, so if you want to see all of your calls in analytics, you'd be able to do so. So let's say you're running like radio ads, you know, there's nothing to do with the website there. We can still send that into analytics. Now, if you don't want that to go in there, there is an option where if there's no visitor data to just not send it to analytics.
But that's like, so you're being smart because you're using Google Analytics now to start to become the marketing dashboard for a local business, even if they're even helping them track their offline efforts through Google Analytics.
Yep, exactly.
Smart.
Yeah. Yeah, so we can send all of those calls in. You can be able to drill down into this as well. Pull up some of the other reports we have here. We also have, what is this? You can see by the event label. So when we're sending the calls in, you'll be able to see, you know, this is like a Google AdWords caller, you know, which phone number it was from. And then the last number we have here is the specific call ID. That way you can go back and reference it in our system.
And you've identified if in your system they're a first-time caller, or repeat caller.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we can do that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And then lastly, if you want to see, we also have this broken down by like source medium. So I'll be able to see all of these. So you can set up really, you know, a number of different reports. So analytics is a really simple integration. You just tell us the UA code you want to link the account with, and then we just start sending everything.
Awesome.
Yeah, and you know, there's a number of different like ways you can add like filters, and I'd recommend signing up for CTM University. It's we have a class that's specifically on analytics and reporting. It's with our marketing manager, and she really just does a great job in like taking a deep dive into this with you. But we should also talk about AdWords. So we're sending calls into analytics, and then we're connecting to AdWords through analytics. So what you need to do is just create a goal so that as it completes around your event, it can be imported into AdWords as a conversion. You know, that only takes a minute to set up, and then you'll be able to see your calls in all three systems. We do integrate directly with AdWords, and it's going to be specifically for like your extensions or like your call-only ads. And this is going to work a little differently. So the way this works is it's a double forward. So your customer is going to call the Google forwarding number. That would go to our tracking number and then ultimately your team. And within an hour or two, we can report on campaign, ad group, and keyword, even though there's no website visit. And we do this by adding a script into AdWords. And this basically allows us to match our call data with Google's and be able to report.
Got it. Got it. So you, again, like you said, with the Google AdWords extensions, you're utilizing their tracking number, for lack of better purposes, right? That then forwards into your tracking number, and you tie it all together in the back end.
Yeah, and if you've seen Google's call tracking reports, they're not that great. I think now would be a good time to kind of jump into our reports because we can provide you like really detailed information.
Got it. Got it.
Yeah, so let's jump to our call log here. I'm going to pull up just some of our demo calls. So this would be like the real-time view of your calls as they're happening. So you can see the person's like caller ID information, the source that they came through. In the middle, we have more information on their sessions. So we can see like where they were referred from, where on the website they had landed, along with the advertising data. If this person had viewed more pages on our site, we would also have those listed here. And then as we go through this, you can listen to like the call recordings. You can see time and date of the call and if it was answered or not. Some of the things that we can do in the call log here would be, or from the call log, is send you a notification, like if you miss a call. We can send you an email or a text, that way you know to follow up quickly. And I think that's one thing that you'll notice that's different with our reporting versus Google's call tracking reporting, is they provide you just the area code of the person who called in, not their phone number. So if you miss a call, you can't call them back. Yeah, but I mentioned earlier
that's an important point. That's a very important point, because even if you do miss a call, if you're only relying upon Google AdWords stuff, you're not going to be able to find the person to call back. And again, part of that is because that's Google's value proposition, is they're the ones that actually own the relationship with the end customer. Here, though, you've identified it, you've brought it through, you've identified the number. So even if I missed the call, I can call them back. I still have that as part of my data record.
Yeah. Yeah, and some people might be hesitant to call them back, and it's like there's no reason to not call them back. You know, if we miss a call here, anytime I call that person back, you know, they're usually surprised, they're impressed, they're like, wow, I can't believe you're calling me back, you know, thank you. So it is a really handy tool.
Got it.
Yeah. I mentioned earlier we've got like a little bit of a lightweight CRM built into this. If we go to the contact tab, you can come in here and update the person's contact information. You can tag a call. Tags are a good way to kind of categorize things and see that in your reporting. So if you want to be able to you know, say like a specific product they're looking for, or if there's a promotion you're running they called about, you know, you can tag that and you'll see it. You can also take notes on the call. So if you take notes on the call and then they call back in, you'll be able to see that record and review it. We also have some scoring tools built in here, and this is really handy. So while you're getting calls, yes, that's great, but maybe you know, you want to start checking like the quality of the lead. So you can score those calls. I see our customers use scoring in two ways. The first is to score the quality of the lead. I think that's the way it's most commonly used. The other thing you can do is score how the agent handled the call. And then also you can say if the call resulted in a sale or not. This we can actually send back to Google. So then you can see like the call as an event, and you can also see a separate event for a call sale. Yeah. And as you fill this out, you'll be able to see this populate in the reports. So while maybe one campaign is getting a lot of phone calls, maybe they're not like the most qualified leads. So you'll be able to see, you know, which ones are bringing in the most revenue.
Yeah, like that.
Yeah. I mentioned earlier about the transcription. Unfortunately, it's turned off in this account, but this is where you'd be able to see like the call being transcribed. We also have call flow. This is a good way to kind of see like how the call is being handled when it comes in. So like each of like the different, I guess like legs that it's going through. So
basically every step in the process.
Exactly. Yep. Yeah, so that's really the call log here. Any questions on that?
No, I think that one of the things that's going to come up and probably beyond the scope of this particular session here is I think businesses, and especially local businesses in general, are having CRM data in a bunch of places, right? So they have their email system, and their email systems are becoming more and more sophisticated where they're tracking sales and how that goes. Some retailers use like Shopify, and they have an online storefront, they have a POS, and all that's tied into a CRM on sales. And so you got you know your e-commerce and POS sales here. You have your email and your email CRMs, which also some of them do text messaging over here. Now you have call tracking over here. And I think one of the big things, and of course now you've got folks like YP is coming out with their whole CRM package for local businesses. I think one of the big things that would be interesting to maybe go into at a later time, or maybe you have a quick answer now, is how do you begin to bring all of these pieces together? You've developed a pretty robust little CRM system in here, but now it's independent of this and independent of this. And I really, as a business, I would love to see kind of one unified CRM dashboard for all of my work, all of my customer relationships.
Yeah, absolutely. So there are kind of some things that we're working toward for that. So, you know, we can send in the calls into like your CRM or, you know, your e-commerce platform. But we can also pull some of this information into our call log. And I think that that's something that you'll see before the end of the year.
Cool. And I think it's just one thing I think I want to make sure local businesses understand. There is still no one silver bullet solution. There's no one silver bullet solution out there that's going to handle all your e-commerce, your point of sale, your email, your call tracking, your web analytics, everything in one nice little place. There is no one silver bullet system at this place. So you have to kind of use these systems as they are and try to cross data where you can, but just still realize that there's a long way to go yet before these systems all kind of seamlessly interact with each other.
Yes, definitely. It's always an evolving process.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, let's look at some of our reports. So we take all the information that we have here and we put it into a series of reports for you. The first is the overview report. This is just kind of like a high-level view of the activity in your account. So like the total number of calls you've had, top source. We pull in some information from analytics, so you can see that here. And all of our reports you can export. We also have our call reports, and this is usually what our customers are really digging into. So this is where you'd be able to see calls by like your different tracking sources and how many you've received, how many of those are unique callers. We provide you, you know, stats on like ring time, talk time. You'll see that conversion information if you're entering it here. So if these calls are resulting in sales and for how much.
Now, keep in mind, again, the data is only as good, it's garbage in, garbage out. So as a business, if you really want to get the value out of this, you got to put the data back in on the sales that resulted.
Yep. We also break this down by like status. So if calls are getting answered or not. You know, and some of these can be really helpful. I think there's a case study on our website. If you go to our blog, it was for LA Furniture Store. So they were using us just for call tracking, and they were actually trying to figure out a way they could get rid of us. They just saw us as like this added cost. But what they ended up learning by working with our team was that a number of their calls, the way they were being handled by their PBX, they were being dropped. So by being able to use our reporting and like see like calls by status, they learned that, you know, internally there was something that was not right going on. And so they were actually able to turn that around and increase their profits. So, you know, we can help with really a number of different things.
Well, just actually getting I mean, if nothing else, getting insights into how people are connecting with you via phone, more than just do they answer the phone or not.
Yep. Exactly. We also, let's see, what do we have here? You can see by, you know, like hour of day, day of week, that can be helpful for like scheduling purposes. Maybe you want to see by like the different landing pages or referring pages. We also break this down by like your PPC specific reports. So if you wanted to see by your different campaigns, and we work with a number of different companies in the addiction recovery space. So you'll probably see some of this throughout our reports.
Okay.
So you'll see by like ad campaign, if you want to see by keyword, you know, all of this will be available to you. And we do have some tools that you can use here. Like we have the filter tool. This is a good way to use those tags. So if you want to see with some of the addiction companies we work with, they want to see calls that are resulting in intakes. So they could just click to see that and then filter, and then they'll see, you know, how many of these calls resulted in that and from which campaign.
Right.
You can also narrow it down by your different sources, or maybe you're interested in seeing calls over like a certain amount of talk time, because those are probably, you know, going to be the more interesting calls to review. So this is just a really good way to kind of drill down and learn more. Now, if you have businesses that are like multi-unit, we do have our advanced plan where you'd be able to have an unlimited amount of sub-accounts. So that way you can separate out your different locations and have separate reporting. So, you know, just to quickly show you, when you log in, you'd have a list of like all of your accounts here, and then you'll have separate reports and you can switch in and out of them.
Now, can you have multiple layers of accounts? Like, for example, I've worked with certain businesses who say, hey, we have, you know, the corporate, we have our Western division, and there's multiple businesses or offices within there. They have over here the Eastern division with multiple offices within there. So can you have multiple layers of accounts? Or is it just two layers, basically the master agency and the each individual layer?
You know, it's not even really, it's almost not even a layer. It's more of like a shell. So all of these accounts, they're, you know, individual standalone accounts. They're just all accessed, you know, by the same login. But we do kind of roll them up into a couple of reports. Like, you know, with all of your different divisions or your different locations, you could see that by accessing the agency dashboard, which would just kind of be, you know, a snapshot across your company as a whole. Let me just pull up, let's look at like, you know, see what's going on in July. You'd be able to see, you know, the activity across the company as a whole, and then by individual location or division. So unfortunately, we kind of can't like tier it, but you would be able to just go through and kind of separate them.
Okay.
I mentioned notifications earlier. This is really probably like one of our most commonly used features. It's a good way to stay on top of your calls. So we talked about missed calls. You can create a missed call notification. So if you want to receive an email or a text, we can send that right to you, and you can select like what fields from the call log you want to include in that notification.
Got it.
Other people want to create like an end of the day, week or month digest of their calls, and then we would send those right to your email. So you can go through and decide, you know, what you want to include.
Okay.
And listen to the recordings right from there as well.
So I don't want to cut you short if there's any key features here, but I know there's one thing that another question just came up here. Okay, what's this cost? That's gonna be $1 million question here. I know that
Oh, that's
it
a great
varies, but
question.
can you help
Yes.
give us an idea of, okay, if I'm a single location business or maybe I'm an agency, what is this going to cost?
Yeah, so we're usage based. You just pay for what you use each month, and our pricing, it is right on our website. There's kind of three components to our cost structure. We charge a monthly subscription fee plus the cost of the phone numbers and minutes used. Here you can see it broken out. We charge, for our essentials plan, which is good for like a single business, like one company, one website. We charge a monthly subscription fee of $19 a month, $2.50 per local number, 4.5 cents per minute, and then toll free is a little more. Sometimes people get scared by, having to pay per minute. And I think if you do the math, to receive like 8 hours of calls, like nonstop calls, it's something like $12 a day, something like that. And if you're receiving, 8 hours of nonstop calls and leads, like I think
And
$12.
you're doing amazing business at that point.
Yeah, yeah. So, and I think the nice thing about our cost structure is we're not bundling. So, you might have a seasonal business and they're going to receive a lot more calls maybe in like the summer or over Christmas, things like that. Some companies are going to want to have you purchase like a bundle, and that's what you commit to all year. So we're month to month, you just pay for what you use, and that way you're not paying overage fees and paying for things that you're not using. So, and it's also, you can use us for a couple of months, you can all for the rest of your life, whatever you'd like.
Awesome. Hey, so before we wrap up here, any last things that you want to kind of bring out, or that you say, hey, we've missed this, we definitely need to cover this?
I think we've done a pretty good overview of like the major components, without diving into call center stuff.
Yep.
If there's questions, you can always reach out to me. You can reach out to our team here. We can schedule a demo, dive into, some of the more specific features you're interested in.
I mean, I think for me, the key thing for local businesses or for agencies that are serving local businesses, call tracking is one of those things that has kind of just gone under the radar. I mean, it certainly isn't as big as much as, okay, local search optimization, ratings and reviews. But I think it's an important piece of the puzzle, because it's a whole way that our customers are contacting with us directly that we're just not doing that good of a job of really tracking and quantifying and bringing in. So I really appreciate you coming on, because I think this is a key part of any local business strategy. And certainly I know it's something that I'm relatively new at myself on the call tracking. And this has been very, very informative and very helpful for me, Mary. So if anybody has any questions, are you okay if we put your contact information with this webinar?
Yeah, absolutely. And if I can just add one thing, when you mentioned agencies, we do have white labeling and reselling features. So that's definitely something to check out as well.
That's fantastic. That's fantastic. And keep an eye on this, gang. If you're an LMI VIP, we may have something very interesting for you here down the road. So I just want to reemphasize, if you are an LMI VIP, we're going to make an archive of this recording, put it in the VIP area here very shortly. If you're not, check it out. Just go to localmarketinginstitute.com/VIP. Tons of great stuff here. Some other great sessions you might want to check into. Mary, thank you so much for your time. Really do appreciate it. Again, this was very, very helpful. And I think this is a key part of a local business marketing strategy.
Yeah, definitely. Thanks for having me.
Thanks, Mary. Cheers.
Thanks. Bye.